Well, hey folks, this is part 3 of the 5-part series covering the Northern Snakehead Seminar that I gave out at Island Tackle Outfitters. If you haven't already seen parts 1 and 2, definitely go back, check those out. We've already covered a lot of information to this point, but today we get into a little bit of video and some other topics we haven't covered yet. So, without further ado, let's get straight to it.
No, it's at least not till they hit a certain age, in my experience. Do you have anything on that, Jim?
I can't really tell them apart by just looking at them.
Yeah.
Very well now.
Any other questions?
One more question. What colors do you use, and what are your top 3 favorite lures?
Let's see. Top 3 favorite lures: Z-Man Pro Chatterbait. A small. I'm giving away more intel here than I should, but like a lot of people throw big topwater frogs and big topwater hollow bodies, whether it be a mouse or whatever it is. And for all I know, maybe that'll get you more hookups on big fish and just less hits total. I really don't know, but I prefer to use smaller ones because I've been out on the river and I've seen snakehead absolutely feasting on dragonflies, and that's all I hear is dragonflies buzzing and snakeheads popping. So I like to use the smaller frogs as opposed to the larger frogs. And if I had to pick a third favorite lure, maybe a ribbit frog. Or the whopper plopper. A small whopper plopper is hard to beat when the bite is on. But a ribbit frog, you can fish on a steady retrieve and pull it to the pads. So like a ribbit frog or a top toad or something similar to that. Yeah. You have one other question I'd answer?
Yes, the color of the lures.
Okay. I'm honestly not that sure it makes a difference. But with that being said, I'm very partial to a crawfish color on my chatterbaits. They seem to really crush those. It varies between different ecosystems, but it seems like where crawfish are available, snakehead love to eat crawfish. Topwater frogs, I'm partial to white. Yeah. Anyone?
Have you read Joe Bruce's book on snakehead?
I haven't. I talked to Joe enough that I'm ashamed that I haven't, but
Okay, in fact, it's pretty good. He tends to do a lot of, what are they, flukes?
yes.
Yeah.
Flukes are a great lure as well. Yep.
Okay.
For snakehead, yep, absolutely. All right, time for some video. All right, so we'll go with bad habit and then good habit, okay? Actually, I'm gonna crank the volume and I'll turn it down as quickly as I can if it ends up being too loud, but I want y'all to be able to hear it. So, this one is titled, as you can probably see on the screen, Wait to Set the Hook.
Now what I should have done there is reeled down until I felt the fish. Instead, because I got excited and angry, I pulled that lure back again way too soon. I should have kept it in the strike zone until I was sure he had it.
Now there's going to be some situations where you're casting in a cover like this where you're not going to be able to see the actual strike, where at least at the point at which lure meets mouth. Like you saw that splash, but when I was in that position right there, I couldn't actually see him take it. So what I did was I set the hook way too fast. I got excited. A better move would have been to leave it in the strike zone, reel down till I felt pressure, or reel down till you might be able to just move it the slightest bit and you'll see it still in the strike zone. If you're able to leave it in the strike zone, a lot of times they will hit it. I've seen snakehead come back 3, 4, 5 times on one retrieve because they'll miss it. It just happens. Now here's a little bit better example for what to do. Watch this right here. Now, I did the right thing there with waiting, but my drag was obviously too loose.
Oh, God. Yeah, it's big. Yeah.
So when you get those strikes, I'll show you some fish later. I'll show you some fish later. Anyway, they got hours online for you. Don't even worry. But yes, when you get that strike, give it a few seconds. Maybe count to at least 2 or 3 before you go to set that hook, and make sure the lure's gone. Like, make sure it's not still sitting on the surface, because if it is and he missed it, if you leave it there, 9 times out of 10, they're going to come back and smash it.
Is that the same situation if you're using like a bobber then, right? So it's a little bit different.
So when snakehead feed, it's been my experience, like, 'cause I was out this spring, and you can watch the videos online. I don't know if it'll have that kind of clarity for you to be able to see it, so I'll explain it. I was catching a lot of big slab crappie and pickerel and bass and snakehead at the same time. Great day. One way you can tell it's a snakehead is if you look underneath your float, you'll see a curtain of bubbles come up, and that's that vortex. That's the bladder within the snakehead. That's them sucking it in. Like, once you see that, generally speaking, you're good to go. But like, if you're asking if I had missed a fish on a float, would I leave it there? I guess it would depend on how far I moved it when I tried to set the hook. But keeping it in the strike zone with snakehead seems to be a really good way to go. Now this is how not to handle snakehead.
All right, bud.
Hold on. Let's do that. There we go.
Ah! There he goes. He got it all that. Ow. There we go. He shook it free mostly. Good. Give me the hook. Hey, go ahead. Yeah. Good. He's probably about to escape any minute now. Not today. There you go. All right, it's gonna be a dicey operation trying to get a picture when there's when they're conscious,
This is a
man.
nice one here.
Especially a big girl. Dude. Yeah, for real. Yeah, that was a good one, dude.
So snakehead are adept at jumping, and they're adept at moving out of water. So the best way to handle it, and I'll show it to you in a second here. The best way to do it is to get a deep net. If you're in a kayak, like if you're on land, it's not as big of an issue. But like when you're in a kayak, you have a limited amount of space to try to control this fish. So three key pieces of equipment, maybe 2. I like to have a deep rubberized net, because whether I'm keeping snakehead or letting them go, a rubberized net, it doesn't damage the mucus coating that's on a fish as much. And that mucus coating, fish rely on that to prevent infection. So, even if you're going to keep all the snakehead, you may catch bass, pickerel, or some other species you use that net on, and you're just looking out for the well-being of the fish. But make sure it's a deep one, because the deeper it is, the better chance you have of keeping them in there. Because I've had them try to shoot right up the side, and sometimes they make it out the net. They're very adept at doing that. The other part is having a good pair of lip grippers. There are cheap ones, there are really expensive ones, and there's mid-range ones. Mid-range is where I usually go because I'm usually fishing on a budget. Right? I got 3 kids at home, essentially a grad student right now, so don't have too much money to drop on it.
Got a float one, that too, right?
I'm getting to that, but excellent point. Yes, yes, absolutely have a float on your lip grippers.
All right, so when it comes to handling snakehead, a lot of people ask me what's the best way to handle it in the kayak. Part of it's you already seen, all right? Using net. Using net to get them out of the water. Now, you can use lip grippers when they're still in the water, but I don't recommend it. Because a lot of times snakehead are real tight lipped. It can be a real chore. So use a net, get them in the net, bring them in the kayak. Now, the fight is not over, okay? Even though you got them in the kayak, snakehead can be a real handful. Ah! There he goes! He got it all that. He got him. Nope. Nope. His mouth is actually slightly open. But you never know when they're going to freak out. Oh, he broke the line. See? He broke the line. This one only 7-pound test. I want to get this hook out. I want to get that crappie rod that he hit. But use the lip grippers once you have them in the net.
and be prepared for that explosion. All right, I got her. That was lucky. That was kind of easy compared to a lot of experiences that I've had. There she is. And that's a decent sized snake. This is probably mid-20s. Gorgeous fish though. Let's go back up there. Just wanted to give you that little brief tutorial. The fillets you'll get off a snakehead are using that phenomenal and relative to the actual size of the fish. All right. And once you do that, they're still not that easy to handle. So get yourself some lip grippers that are able to spin. Because I've seen snakehead literally tear their own jaws off before trying to get away. These fish are explosively powerful and they'll death roll. All right? So that's something you really got to be prepared for. Now I'm going to get a still shot of this beauty and I'm going to let her go. God, is she gorgeous. Oh, one of them. Put a float. Oh, no, it's okay. Put a float on your lip grippers. Because I've had experiences before where I've lost the grip on them and they've ran away with my lip grippers. And luckily at that point, I was on it, so I didn't lose it.
Okay, I have eyes on the hook. Well, good thing I put a float on there. It broke my line. See that float?
See that jaws?
Follow the float. And got her.
But had I not had that, I definitely would have lost the fish and my lip grippers. So did I help you at least a little bit in terms of how to handle the snakehead? Now that is not the only time that a float has saved my lip grippers. There has been times since then where, like, you just don't know. These fish will be completely still at one moment and completely freak out the next. And if you think you can hold on to it, I'm willing to bet a fair sum of money that you're not going to be able to. They're just that slippery. They don't have a body profile that you can grip very easily. I mean, they get thick shoulders, but they're essentially long and cylindrical and taper at both ends. It's really hard to hold on to. Really hard to hold on to. Now with this next video, I'm going to show you, I'm going to do something good in the beginning. Kind of. I'll explain it. Let's watch it first, then I'll explain it.
Ah!
So, I'll explain to you what happened here. That second spinning rod I'm holding in my hand, that had a chatterbait on it. I got it snagged. But the area that I was casting it to just looked too good. I was like, I can't go in this hole until I at least get one quality cast in this hole. So I threw the topwater frog in afterwards. And then you saw what happened. I was really on a fast retrieve. Honestly, I thought I was done with the cast. That's why I was going that fast. And you saw him pop and miss. Now, if I had set the hook on that first pop, I probably would have never had a chance to put hooks to the fish. Kept it in the strike zone, let it sit, and then I popped it again just by chance right before he grabbed it. Let it sit, and then she popped it again, and that's when you drive it home. Now I lost that fish because I had a fly rod hanging out the front of my kayak and the snagged line hanging out the other side of the kayak, so I got tangled up in my own gear. So when you're dealing with snakehead, especially in a kayak, keep your gear squared away. If you got a phone, keep it in the waterproof case. Anything loose in your kayak, once the snakehead is there, is very prone to get kicked over the side by the snakehead when they're freaking out. So keep other gear clear of the area.
I have a question.
Sure.
So you said that you didn't want to go in that hole until you cast it in there?
Yeah.
So do they frighten easy? Or
Yeah.
if you get in there and they like noise and things like that, they're not going to bite?
And I've heard this from biologists too, when they're doing like electrofishing surveys or other kind of surveys. The answer to your question is yes, in my experience. They are a skittish fish.
So as you say, you working your way down a certain area, cast in there, then go and move on.
Exactly.
Don't get there and then cast all around you.
In a pad field, you can get away with it. But I mean, even going through pad fields, I'll spook 3, 4, 5 fish as I'm on my way into the pad field. One way I like to do it, like out at Blackwater, you have those shorelines that are lined with reeds. What I'll do is I'll pick a spot, I'll point cast. Once I'm confident that I fished that spot well, sometimes I'll paddle into it so I can cast parallel with something like a whopper popper or a buzz bait or some kind of moving bait down the shoreline. And then kind of repeat that process as I go.
How long would you work a certain area until you feel that you?
Depends on what I see.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's been places where my buddies fished a spot, and I mean within like a minute of each other. My buddy takes 3 or 4 casts to a spot, he moves on. My next buddy takes 3 or 4 casts to that same spot, moves on. I come behind with a chatterbait and nail one. So it seems like, if you ever seen the videos of like snakehead fishing out in Thailand, they'll literally sit in one spot along like I think they have like floating aquaculture pens out there. And they'll just cast the buzz bait down there and just cast. Like, what is this guy doing? He'll be like 10 or 12 casts deep in the same exact spot and then get blasted. Now, those are giant snakehead, but sometimes the same kind of rule applies to northerns. Any other questions? So, see if we can sum this up and get to more questions if we have any. So, snakehead, for whatever else they are, invasive, not invasive, we could talk about that for a long time. What they do have are pretty much all the qualities of a great game fish. They fight really hard. They hit really hard. They're aggressive. They taste great. I mean, you just check off the list as you go. They have all the qualities of a great game fish. We're just in a point of limbo right now where we're still trying to figure out what is the impact of this species going to be on the various ecosystems we have all around here. Because the impact they have in the Potomac is not going to be the same, probably not going to be the same as Blackwater, probably not going to be the same as, the gunpowder. It's going to change. So we have to, if you see a fisheries biologist like Jim over here, make sure you thank him. Because these are the guys who are out there doing the studies so we can figure out what's going on with this species and what's going on with the environment so we can effectively manage them. Because I do think there's a lot of potential for this fish, but we have to be careful. It's a novel species. It's a new species to the environment. I guess another point right there, a lot of the other species like a chase, they require intensive stocking programs. Snakehead do not. So, I mean, that's just one more point in their favor in terms of maybe one day, if they're proven over a long enough timeline to not have that kind of impact, that we can actually look at this fish as a fish we utilize as a game fish, because it requires minimal upkeep on our part. In a time where striper stocks are declining, in a time where a lot of our other sport fish are in a bad way, shifting some of that pressure over to snakehead is a good way to go, but we're never going to eliminate it. We're never going to eliminate snakehead. It's a question of what kind of fishery do we want to have for snakehead? And then what actions do we have to take to have that kind of fishery?
Now, folks, like I said before, this was part 3 of 5. Tomorrow, the day after this one's release, will come part 4, and then on the following day, part 5. So if you have any questions or comments, let me know. Please like, share, and subscribe, and y'all have a good one.